helped Lego, Microsoft, and Unilever create brand experiences that actually move people. And now he's turning AI into a superpower for founders. It's Mr. Pete Sena. We know each other, and he's here on the Marketer of the Day podcast with Robert Plank, brought to you by dfypodcast.com. We handle the back end of your podcast. We turn your content into a lead generating machine. But we're here with Mr. P, who says that most MVPs are trash, and we're here to maybe discuss some of these exciting ideas like AI or storytelling or growing your revenue, so much more. He's seen so much, he's done so much, he's here to help us out. Mr. Pete Sena, glad to see you again.
Good to be here. Good to be here. It's been a long time, Robert, but I'm happy to be back on the show.
Heck yeah, and I think, well, I mean, I need to go check, but I think we were on a different show, right? I think I was hosting the Otter PR Scaling Secrets, and that's what we do, right? We develop these skills and then we transfer them, and some things we do ourselves, some things we do for clients, but all in all, podcasting is great because we generate that content, we have that human element, and then we can use AI to then, multiply it and amplify it and grow it. But enough about all that. What are you up to? What has you currently focused and passionate?
Yeah, I'd say thank you for asking that question. For me right now, I'm really focused on helping people become AI first companies. And to make that more specific and more tactical, what I would say is I'm helping business owners that run expertise businesses or service businesses, which were previously not sexy. I'm helping service business owners become sexy and get SaaS-like margins. So I'm really doing that by taking what they do best, helping them figure out how to package it, how to automate it, how to accelerate it. And certainly you can't use any of those words today without talking about generative AI in some way, shape, or form. But I think it's more than just AI. I think it's being able to really help them think through what is the next playbook that's going to work for them. Because we can't win today in business by using the old playbook. It just won't work anymore.
Yeah. And then at the same time, we're worried about this thing called the AI bubble, right? And I hear people talking about that. And I'm like, is that doom and gloom? So I can't ignore AI, but then I'm like, well, there's so much hype. So I look to navigate what's just people using like a wrapper on something or just throwing out keywords versus what's actually useful. And so what kind of businesses do you help with AI? Because I can imagine someone being like, I navigate all the terms and the tools. Help me out, Pete.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say the businesses that I'm getting the most phone calls about specifically, it's typically CMOs of brands that are saying, how do I get my agencies and my teams to use AI more? So really on the brand side, because I've been in branding, as you highlighted so nicely and politely just a few moments ago. So it's a lot of brand CMOs. It's a lot of founders of venture-backed companies that want to just hit that gas button, hit the accelerator pedal. And I would say it's a lot of agency owners, because I've built multiple successful agencies. I have a lot of agency owners that come to me looking for advice to say, hey, Pete, how do I leverage AI? How do I lean into these new things so that I don't end up on the unemployment line or on the startup graveyard line? And that's basically, I'd say, that the three most common ones. But then every once in a while, I'll get hit up from a research lab or a university that is curious about how they can lean into these things.
And so when they're saying, when you're here to help them lean into these things, like the mind boggles about like where to even begin, right? I think about, all right, well, I'll use AI for like my SEO, analyze my customer data, play around with my landing page, my content. Like, where do you even begin? When someone says, I want to use AI in my business, is it a matter of like what they ask you or their answers to the questions you ask them? Or like, how do we even say, all right, AI sounds great, but where to even start?
Yeah, I'm going to steal a quote that I use a lot from my friend who's a famous game designer, worked on games like Saints Row and Halo and some of the biggest games in the world. And he always says, start where you stand. And that's Aaron LeMay is his name. And I think it's start where you stand. I think it's being able to understand, where is the company at? I think people often jump to the next shiny bauble or the shiny toy. I think founders and business owners are often like squirrels because they're in so much pain, right? They're just trying to figure out that extra thing to keep their head above water, that they jump to the next shiny thing that they see on a Twitter post or a LinkedIn post or whatever. Where I like to start is more at a holistic systems level. So what I like to do, if you were the CEO of the business I was talking to, the first thing I would say is, tell me more about your specific business. And they'd look at me and go, well, you've run an agency for 20 years. No. Tell me about your agency. Tell me about your brand. Because what I like to think about is, who are the people that are contributing to the work? What are the platforms that you're using? What are the processes and the workflows that you do today? And then how are you positioning your expertise? I start with those P questions, if you will. And then when I move from there, then I start to get a sense of, okay, this is how they're doing things. Perfect example is if you already use Gemini and you already pay for Google Workspace, for me to come in and get you to sign up for ChatGPT Enterprise, that's a distraction. That's another tool that your team has to use. And the reality is both ChatGPT, Claude by Anthropic, and Google Gemini, all of these tools are large language models. All of these tools are frontier models. So for me to try to introduce a new technology immediately loses my credibility from the first moment. So I want to start where you stand, figure out where you're at, and then I want to understand, how do you create value in your organization? So if you're a professional services business, whether you're a law firm, an accounting firm, an ad agency, SEO company, or whatever it is, you get paid most likely by the billable hour or by the deliverable. It's probably a mix of project-based work, retainer-based work, and then some hopefully packaged or productized deliverables. So I think in some cases, you're selling your time or your value or your deliverables. So I want to start with that, and I want to understand the mechanics of the business. Because the question often there is, for businesses that are trying to think about how to create more revenue, that's often the wrong place to start in the AI era. In the AI era, you want to start with profit. You want to really understand, what is it that you deliver? What's the value you create? When I start there, certainly we're going to get to the same place, which is AI tools and workflows and automations and all that good stuff, which, Robert, you know me, we can dig in and get nerdy in the time we have today. But that's where I like to start, because most of the what I call AI grifters, they're just like, sign up for this tool, it's going to do this thing for you. They don't consider that you can't have change, you can't have progress without change management. And change management really comes down to understanding, why are people leaning into or not leaning into the tools that you're providing them. Most organizations have a lot of these tools. They pay for them, or they'll sign up for them and they'll never use them again. What I like to do is start from, where's the value capture and creation happen? And then how do I amplify that? And I'm happy to go into some very specific examples, Robert, but I figured I'd answer the question a little higher level so you could take it where you want to.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a magical category to think about, just that there's software and there's tools, but ever since software began, there's this issue of the buy-in, the adoption, the gamification, the getting people using it. And it can be like the best software and do all these things, but if it doesn't fit into what you're doing, or if people just won't use it, then it's just sitting there useless with the monthly and the yearly renewal fees, and just like, sitting there not being used. So you say that instead of just like saying, hey, here's the only way, you have to fit it into a box, stop using all these tools, let me spend all these billable hours migrating you over here. You say, hey, what's your business already? And you get the profit increase, not necessarily the revenue. And so, like, what do you think, is there like a low-hanging fruit, or once you look into all of these companies, I know everyone's different, but do you like see the same like problem or bottleneck again and again when you jump in and dig deep?
Yeah, 100%. So what I always tell people is, focus on where you can do where can you do more of something that's already working? Where can you make it better before you go and jump to something different, right? So a lot of times, I'll give you a good example. If you dig into the research by Gartner or Chief Martech, a guy named Scott Brinker, who's done some amazing reports, you'll find that most technologies that people use, they use about 30% of the core feature sets. But yet marketers are always on the look for, or ops or executives are always going to look for, the next better tool, because what they're really looking for is something that doesn't exist, like the Indiana Jones movie. They're looking for the Holy Grail, right? They're looking for that one thing that they're going to get. And when they get that thing, everything's going to improve around them. That one hire, that one software, that one API. The reality is, having done this for 20 something years, having studied and read up on the biographies of some of the greatest CEOs, entrepreneurs that have ever walked this earth, what I'll tell you is, there is no such thing as a one Holy Grail thing. What I would say is, start with, how do you get better leverage from the tools and the platforms you already have? How do you get better leverage from the people you have, right? As a business, all you're allocating is capital, human capital, financial capital, and obviously technology capital is sort of part of how you deploy your capital, right? So I think at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is, I'll look at something and go, okay, my barometer for success, when I do what's called a pre-assessment survey, which is just a fancy way to say I survey people to find how they're doing stuff, without having to go have a bunch of conversations or make an LLM hallucinate, right? What I basically will say is, okay, for every unit of work that your people do, whether they're freelancers, full-time employees, partners, whatever, is at least 20% or more of the work that they do being made better or supported with AI. Keyword, made better or supported. I don't care when someone tells me, oh, I use 80% of AI for everything I do. Chances are, if that's the case, you are probably someone I hate, because you are creating work slop. And work slop is when people just are slinging AI and you get it back and it just reeks of that like large language model robotic text. We've all seen it, right? The email you get back, the proposal you get back, and you're like, there is no care or craft put into this. That's AI slop. That's work slop. We want to make sure that that's not happening. So from there, the next place we go is, let's look at the work you actually do, right? So pick a business of any kind, Robert, and I'll give a very specific example for you in the audience.
Business of any kind. I mean, I do a podcast agency, so that's just what jumps to mind for me. Like I
Wonderful.
manage the back end of people's podcasts.
Perfect. So I recently helped a podcast agency. I can't say their name, but I'll share a little bit what we did. Turns out that their podcast briefing that their producers were doing for the actual host on average was taking somewhere around 6 hours to do. Now they go really in deep, right? This is not a high level, this is an in-depth podcast. If I told you who they were, you'd know who they were. Very notable name. What we help them do is an agentic research process. Fancy way to say, when they know who's going to be on the show and when they're going to be on the show, we have an automated set of things that happen. So it's a triggered set of prompts that are connected together, orchestrated by a LLM, and it goes out and it fetches real live research on that particular guest. It builds a narrative on that guest. It builds a couple of show ideas on that guest. It does automatic research. And this is the thing that you're saying, you're smiling, saying, oh, we already do that. We have a Chat GPT research prompt or a Gemini research prompt that does that. And then we dump that into this prompt. Then we dump that into this prompt. It's still a couple hours, right? What I like to do is identify, how do we get the information? How do we clean it, curate it, and go from, the messed up dirt down to the diamonds? How do we put that into a high quality, well formatted document that host who's hosting podcast can read, that the off-air talent is able to do? And that's an example of an automation that would be really helpful to drive margin. So then what that means is that instead of sending a bunch of spammy cold outreach emails that no one reads, the producer now can actually send higher quality emails that have more empathy, that have more direct connection, because they're not spinning their wheels going and fetching information. They're not going on YouTube, finding a transcript, selecting a few things, popping into a shitty Chat GPT prompt and running that. What they're doing is our tool's going out, it's hitting the YouTube videos where Robert Plank's been featured, it's grabbing the transcripts from the YouTube videos, it's parsing that through an orchestrator, and it's coming back and giving you show notes, it's giving you whatever. It's when you finish your Riverside podcast and you drop that file into a Google Drive folder, it triggers an automation that automatically splits up the clips, sends them to someone for review with a human in the loop. Then when the person says yes, automatically generates the captions in their voice and tone using something like Anthropic's API, puts that into a scheduling queue. And now the social media person or whoever's responsible for it can spend the time making sure that the details, the final finishing is where it needs to be. They can spend more time being thoughtful versus clicking and dragging and copying and pasting things from a spreadsheet. Nobody wants AI to write their screenplay. Nobody wants AI to do their next big creative work of art. Everyone wants AI to do their dishes. Everyone wants AI to do their dirty work. What I help people do is get the dirty work out of the way so that they can live more meaningful experiences with the work that they do, and hopefully actually get time to spend with their families and friends, because we know so many of us today in this world, it's more for less, right? Everyone's working round the clock. The promise of AI is what I described, but the peril of AI is the other side of it, which is we free ourselves up more and then we end up having to do more work. That is not the promise AI is trying to deliver on.
Right, just that kind of one foot in, one foot out, right? The problem's half solved, where you say, well, the old way is maybe doing all this writing, output, take your pick, the work myself. And then I see, oh my gosh, hey, I'll do all this. And then you kind of do it halfway, but then you end up doing all the copy and pasting, and it takes up time, it tires you out. And then as you and me and the rest of us have seen, just the laziness, right? There's no kind of human factor in that workflow. And it's like, cool, I ran it through the prompts and here it is. And I mean, heck, I'm sure you've seen when someone responds to you an email and they leave the filler text in, right? Someone's responding to your email and it says, hey, here's a response to Pete's email crafted in a friendly format. It's like, hey, at least take this time to take that out. But then we've also seen like the content where it's like, well, is that AI or isn't it? I can't really tell. But then the dream is that you get to that finish line because of it, right? And you get to something faster or better. You get that screenplay, and it's all thought through, or it's better ideas, or it's faster, or it's like just kind of it's improving with you. And it's like this whole kind of the way of thinking, right? Whenever I talk to guys that do like the funnel building, the automation workflow, it's like just a mindset I'm always looking to wrap my head around and like getting and thinking. So like, how do you just get excited about the data, the percentages, the conversions, the debugging? Like, is it like incremental progress, or like how does a person with the brain or the brain of your team's people, how do we understand this kind of automation workflow mindset?
Well, there's a couple ways to answer that. I think the thing I would say is it depends on knowing yourself first, which is, are you the kind of person that wants to just know who to hire so you can pull the trigger and buy your way to victory? Or are you the kind of person that wants to jump in and be a DIY person, right? Some people want it done for them. Some people want to do it themselves. Where you fall on that spectrum is entirely up to you. But what I would say is the one thing that everyone can benefit from, whether you're a CEO or an intern or everywhere in between, is spending time in the tools. Ask the tools you use a question, right? Whether it's Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic, whatever you're using, play with the tools, right? We need to carve out, what I recommend everyone do is carve out a few hours a week. It could be 30 minutes a day. It could be a couple hours a week, however you want to fit into your schedule. Just find time to experiment and play. Because what I've come to see, and the data will show you, is that most AI pilots actually fail. Recently, a study came out by MIT where it basically said almost all of the AI pilots are failing. What they didn't cover in that study, which if you dig deeper, you'll find out, it's not that AI is not able to help us. It's that we just can't help ourselves, right? We as humans get in the way all the time, right? We push back because we're afraid we're going to lose our job, or we're afraid if we lean into AI too much, it's going to make us stupid, or it's going to do this thing. I think ultimately, the answer to the question in the most succinct way, what I would say is start to experiment, because the things that I'm discovering when I'm up late at night playing with these tools, you can discover too. It doesn't require rocket science. I'll give you a perfect example, Robert. So I recently launched a vibe coding course. And you're probably saying, Pete, like, you're a super successful entrepreneur. Why launch a course? Great question. And I'll tell you why. It forced me to sit down. And when you teach somebody something, you get to learn it twice, right? So it forced me to basically say, okay, you know what? I have all these executives that are calling me saying, Pete, what is this agentic thing? What is this lovable thing? What is this Vercel thing? All these things that are asking about, they see a headline and they're like, Pete, be my AI whisperer. And I stop and I say, okay, I keep getting the same question over and over. Let me teach executives how to build a prototype. And I sat down and I built a few course module. You're certainly welcome to put it in the show notes. And if you want to give me a promo code or something, I can give it to the audience so they can all download it for free as a member. For if they're on your podcast, they just have to email Robert and you'll give them the promo code, so they don't pay a single dollar for it. It'll be 100% free. But in that, what I do is I cover how you can, in an afternoon, build an app. We actually build a testimonial app that's full, whatever. And it's not hard. And people realize, oh my God, if I just know what I want and I talk to my computer, I can make magic. Now, let's be clear, folks. This is not replacing your engineering teams or your groups that do this at a professional level. This is how do you go from the crazy idea in your head to a rough prototype that you can put in front of a customer or put in front of a team member. Because if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a prototype's worth 1,000 meetings. And the way to take that forward and put something in front of someone that they can touch and feel and interact with, it's way better than a static, lame, clickable prototype, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I think, ultimately how they can start doing it, is leaning into it. Now, I don't know if that opens up probably a bunch more questions for you, Robert. I'm happy to go really in the weeds with any of these things if you want. I just want to know what's most valuable for you in the group.
Yeah, and I mean, you're blowing my mind here just with what's possible and the questions we should be asking ourselves, right? You're saying it's important to know what you want and know what your style flavor is if you're a DIY or you have others do it, and it's important to just be curious, right? And like know what's possible and know what the next step is, right? Okay, vibe coding. Well, are you doing it just to dabble around and have fun, or you do it to create this prototype to then get the meetings. That's more interesting and exciting, right? That's a real goal. And so I guess we only have a few minutes here, and for this kind of last part, we're in kind of the blank space territory where I usually kind of have my guests like sort of choose their own question, right? We're looking for the missing question in the conversation, but instead of that, I kind of like to be selfish, because ever since ChatGPT especially became a thing, I'm using it every day and always kind of experimenting. And I a lot of the podcasts run together, so I can't remember the exact. I remember you more than anyone dumped out a bunch of cool AI advice, but I've heard people say things that just blew my mind, right? They say things like, well, if you are looking to accomplish some kind of goal, have it backtrack and make a 90-day plan. Or I think you said like have like a daily habit, create a GPT and just like talk to it every day with just like your big picture and your thoughts, and have it be like the role of an executive coach. But that was a couple of years ago. It's amazing that AI has been mainstream for this long and things have happened. So I guess the selfish question is, as far as maybe what's been useful for you and separating the goofing off from the actual productivity and using AI on a daily basis for you, what do you think's been useful?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big question. And I don't know if we have enough time today to say it. Here's what I would say. One of my favorite quotes that I lean into a lot is the Arthur C. Clarke. And if you're not familiar with Arthur C. Clarke, science fiction author, he's written a lot of interesting things. And one of the quotes that he says all the time that really moves me is, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? If we don't understand it, it's magic. So I'll give you an example, just super quick here. This is a video podcast, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So let me just show you really quick. I'm going to just share my screen for a second.
All right. It is video, but we'll also put it on like Apple Podcasts. So
Yeah, of course.
we have to. It's dual, right?
Absolutely. So I'll just show you really quick. So basically, I'll share my screen. So for those that can't see my screen, that's okay, because I'm going to describe what I'm doing. So one of the things that I find that people fall victim to is they let software get in the way of their own productivity. And I recently talked about this. I'll just share really quick this thing. This I'm showing on screen, just for the folks that haven't seen it, is I built a very simple tally counter when I'm doing something. So let's say, for example, I'm reaching out to podcast hosts. Typically, this is a task I have my executive assistant do, but I'll just put this task in, I'll start a timer, and let's say I'm going out and I'm doing some research and I'm pulling up a browser and I'm doing some stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And I do something and I click it and I click it and I click it. This is a React application. I built it in a technology called Lovable, which I'll just show you here really quick. And it's a really, really simple solution for doing all kinds of different things. And what I want to show you here is how I did that in like no time at all, right? So what I'll do is I'll take the group through, and if you're not on the screen, you can't see this, that's okay. I'm going to show you a free website that you can go to. It's called Make, M-A-K-E, My, M-Y-P-R-D, MakeMyPRD.com. You can go to this website and you can describe an idea that you have. So Robert is in the business of podcasts. So let's say, for an example, I want to be able to do a podcast research automation project, right? So I'm going to use a technology here called Whisper, which lets me talk to my computer. I'll show you really quick. In the box, I'm just going to input what I want. So I want to be able to put in the URL and the website and the social channels of a guest that I'm going to have on my podcast. I want you to go through, I want you to grab all the most recent content that they've said on the internet for the last 60 days. And I want you to triage that information, put it into a single markdown document, take that markdown document, put it into a prompt that goes through the ChatGPT API and come back and gives me a suggested guest outline for what I can cover on a podcast. There'll be an input field in a form where I can type in what I want. I just described that really, really quick. Now, what our tool here is going to do is we're going to just click this one button. It's 100% free. And I built this because people don't often know how to properly prompt AIs to make things for them. I cover this and how to do it step by step in the course. Again, happy to include that link for anybody that wants to do it. I'll give it to you for 100% free by just listening to Robert's podcast. So Robert, you can put that in as a little subscription thing for the folks that email you. They'll get the code. Everybody else will will have to pay for it. So what this is going to do is it's going to go through having 20 years of experience building brands, doing consulting, building and supporting products. I've learned there's a way to define a product that gives vision and clarity, that enables your engineers to think about it, your designers to think about it, and everyone using grounded design thinking as the methodology. You're going to see it in a second. So what's happening behind the scenes is it's taking this rough input I put in the box and it's generating a detailed product requirements document. Now, the folks listening to this might be saying, well, Pete, I can just go on to ChatGPT or Claude and ask it for a PRD. And they are absolutely right. But what I'll tell you is when you look at my output versus your output, the quality of your prompts is the quality of your progress. So what you can see here is I've given an original business idea. It's now going to give me the TLDR of that idea here. It's going to give me the business goals, the user goals, the non-goals, right? It'll give me user stories. It'll create synthetic user story persona. So James, the 41-year-old podcast network producer, as James, I want to manage multiple guest research requests simultaneously so I can support several hosts. As James, I want to export outlines. So these are user stories, then functional requirements and the importance of them, high, medium, low. Then what is the experience there? So I've got that. Then the narrative, which is a really important thing to kind of make it human, because when we design products that are not designed for humans, they don't get used. So then we have that. Then we define success and the tech. And then we get all that information. And what we can do here is just click copy PRD or download PRD. And I'll just show you if we get copy PRD. And now if I go on over to Lovable or any tool, you could use Lovable. You could use bolt.new. You could use V0, right? You can use so many different tools to do that. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to just show you really quick here. And again, I go through this in the course. But basically, I'll just show the audience here so they can see it. And for those that are on there, don't worry, I'm going to narrate it in a second. So what you're going to see here, and I'm just using Lovable. Again, you can pick anyone you want. Lovable is very approachable. It's cheap too. You can see here, there's a really detailed prompt here that goes through all the context that came out of that document that was auto-generated. So what I generally recommend folks doing is editing this document to your, the lazier you are with AI, the worse you're going to get. So going through, spending some time speccing this, putting what you actually want. Now, I'm not going to do it right now because we have limited time on the pod, but if I was to submit this right now, you'll notice at the bottom, I tell it before you start writing the code, you're going to ask me a set of specific questions. That helps to guide alignment on the AI, making sure the AI has the right context. I might upload some supporting documents. If I have some rough wireframes or designs that I'm really happy with, that someone on my team did, I'll also include that. And then I'm going to run it. Now, in doing that, what will come out on the other end of it is I'll start jousting back and forth with the computer, and I'll get to something that actually is probably a pretty good version 1. Now, the nice thing about tools like this is they let you download the code. So someone who has a software engineering background like me, or maybe you have someone on your team that can do that, they can pick it up and they can finesse it and tie it down. This is not a replacement for engineers. This is not a replacement for designers. This is a catalyst to help people move faster to getting a prototype. Now, what I will tell you is that thing I first showed you, that tally counter, I built that from start to finish in 5 minutes. What came back was ugly. So I spent another 10 minutes finessing it because I wanted the design to not look like crap. And I got to a design and a color palette I was happy with. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see I posted a video doing this process from start to finish just recently, a couple of days ago on my LinkedIn. So that's an example of how everyone now gets more agency in their life. Everyone gets more agency in their job. You don't need to be a 10-person team of specialists. You can be a small team of generalists and you can lean on these AIs and these tools to do things. So that's one example. You asked a question about tools, right? One of the other things I recommend people do a lot is they go and they sign up for the OpenAI Academy, right? It's a free thing. Naturally, OpenAI wants people to use their products. So they're like, here's some free education. They teach you how to prompt. They teach you how to write a good prompt, right? It's not that hard. If you can think clearly, you can write clearly. If you can write clearly, you can prompt clearly. And if you can prompt clearly, you can change the course of your freaking universe, right? So what I tell people a lot of times is the best way to grow with AI is to start using AI. And just understand whether you're an expert like me or a novice that's listening to this right now or in the future, we all have to suck at first. And the beauty of AI right now is it's moving so fast that today I'm an expert and tomorrow I'm a novice. So I think we have to keep going through that beginner's mindset And that's how we're going to grow. So that's what I would say. I hope that's helpful for you in the audience. These things don't have to be overwhelming and scary if we open ourselves up to possibility. And that's what these things create for us, is possibility.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the official term for what you just did is "mwah," but it's just
Thanks.
amazing to see what's possible, right? Because like I'll be on a walk and I just my brain swirls and thinks about this all the time. Just all these because like what you just shown, especially with like the software architecture. I mean, you and I have read whole books about that, right? You and I have taken whole university classes about this idea of like architecting the software and what do you want it to do and look like and what are the user stories and the functionalities and the goals. And it's just like it's a garbage in garbage out situation, right? If you just tell AI, "I'll make me some app," it'll do its best, but it'll guess. Versus if you're specific, and it's like with like software architecture and all that, it's like, well, you make a spec and you say in plain English what you want it to do, and then when you code it, you're like translating the English to the code. But for all these years, it's been so tedious, monotonous, takes months, takes many people. But then the whole point of LLMs is you translate one type of text to another, right? You dump in a spreadsheet, give it analysis, dump in a podcast, get show notes, dump in the specification and get code. And so this is an amazing tool that you've created. And I love how all the vibe coding, like, cause I use Cursor a lot. They
Yep.
have like the voice input. So it's even easier, right? You just talk to it and tell it what you want. And then of course you say, well, what it creates, you might then change the prompt. The prompt itself will ask you some questions. And then even when it outputs, you joust back and forth until you get it to first draft, and then you export import the code. But then now you have something that's a good starting point, and it might shortcut you a month or 6 months or show someone what's possible. And it's just an amazing tool, and it's just so I personally, I'm always kind of just trying to not get hit by the fire hose so much, right? Because there's so many ideas, but time is so short. And so that's why we need kind of the guidance of someone like you, right? Because even what you rattled off there, you're like, hey, use this tool, use that tool. So in order for us to kind of get the kind of the temperament, right? We have all the information. We need to maybe slow down and get the help of someone who's done it. What are some next steps here? I know we have PeteSena.com and we have that resource you mentioned, but if someone says, man, Pete's just blowing my mind, I have to take a nap and then run around the block and then go to his website, what's that next steps they should be going to?
Yeah, well, I mean, first, I'd love anybody who's listening to this and you get value from it, shoot me a note on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm just Pete Sena on both those platforms. Love to hear from you. Would love to connect with you. If there's something that you're facing or struggling with, feel free to hop over to petesena.com or the resonance.studio. I'm sure Robert will include these in the show notes. But yeah, I mean, if I can be useful or helpful for anybody, that's my goal here. I put out a lot of free content because at the end of the day, there's a lot of grifters out there. There's a lot of people that are going to try to tell you how to get to 10K a month doing this. And I'm not one of those guys. Like, I want to show the world the things that work for me. I want to build in public. I want to, share my losses, share my wins with everybody. I think that's the best way to be authentic in a world that's becoming more and more inauthentic with a lot of this AI slop happening. I see people I really respected that I'm losing respect for because they're outsourcing their thinking to AI, and that's not the purpose of it, in my opinion. So what I would say is if I can help you, let me know, folks. I'm happy to point you to resources. I'm not going to hard sell you. If I can help you and there's value creation, great. But yeah, no, this is what I enjoy doing. I want to spend the next 10 years of my life really just helping people to shape the possibilities of what they can achieve if they just start thinking and working differently.
Very nice. Very beautifully said. So the hub for all of that is PeteSena.com, PeteSena. He's an AI whisperer, as we've heard. He helps you turn AI into ROI by connecting your story, your strategy, and your systems. And as we've experienced in real life and in this conversation, it's not just you push a button and it's done it. The button helps you get there, but you have to think and strategize and know what will work and doesn't work. And Mr. Pete is the guy to kind of help you and get there and create something that changes lives, grows your company, and helps others. So PeteSena.com, and then we'll also have those other links in the show notes because those are longer links, but especially the resonance.studio where they help to transform vision into reality by combining deep AI expertise with world-class design to build faster, smarter, and with more impact. And as people are checking out those resources at PeteSena.com, which is the hub, it's time for the scary part of the show, Mr. Pete. You've already provided so much value, but I'm here to try to stump you and put you on the spot by asking about a fun quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as a fun quote or lesson?
So I shared my favorite quote, which is the Arthur C. Clarke quote already. So I guess I can't use that again, right? So you're trying to stump me. What I would say is I'm reminded of what I think was Henry Ford that said it, but these days, with the internet, who knows who said it or not? But it's whether you think you can or you can't. You're right. So I think it's a really good way to close on this discussion, because at the end of the day, if you believe that AI is going to, come for you and replace you, you're right. If you believe that AI is going to be the thing that unlocks a new level of success for you, you're right. So think about the Henry Ford quote. We all know who Henry Ford is, right? It's the guy that literally made auto production what it is today. And I think I love that quote because it's so succinct, and it really comes down to your mindset is everything. And what you do with that mindset is even more. So yeah, that's probably a good place to close.
I love it. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. It's said by Henry Ford and quoted by Mr. Pete Sena. PeteSena.com. If you need to get a handle on this AI sort of stuff, go there and book a brainstorm call with him if it makes sense. So you can win more with AI and become more divergently creative. And thanks, Mr. Pete Sena, for stopping by, showing up, helping us once again years later about AI. I'm sure you'll be here back again soon. But who knows what AI is replaced by then? So thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Talk to y'all soon.